to choose an effective property manager for your commercial property. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking commercial property is exactly like residential when it comes to property management. Don't you just collect the rent and that's it? Give me the rent at the end of the month. Yeah, the tenant calls, field some of those calls, tell them what the issue is, sort it out, get a tradesperson, get it sorted, and that's done. Give me my tax return details at the end of the year. What else do you do? See, this is where fundamentally commercial property managers are different from residential. Commercial property managers should be asset managers. Now, if you find a commercial property manager who's simply just managing your property, fielding those inquiries, and not pulling their weight in terms of helping you to increase the value of your asset in both cash flow and the value, then you should be switching property managers. I'm not a property manager, so I'm not here to give you a biased advice. This is totally unbiased. My idea is to create financial freedom for you and wealth through commercial property. My name is Helen Tarrant. This is what I help everyday Australians to do. Now, choosing the right property manager is fundamental to the growth of your property in your portfolio. Why is that so important? You see, the thing is, in residential, what typically happens is that you have your property, the tenant pays you one lot of rent, and any issues that come up, so let's say the light fittings need to be changed, water heater goes, the grass needs to be mowed, the pool is green, the aircon breaks down, all of that, the water heater breaks down, all of that is your issue. And as soon as they call, that is what your property manager is going to do. They're going to firefight and sort out those issues. Now, a commercial property manager doesn't do that. What they do is that they go and check your lease first. They go, well, hold on. Before we promise to do anything for you, let's see if it's our obligation or your obligation to actually do it, right? So I'll give you two prime examples of this and how we helped our clients through this situation. Number one of my personal tenants called me up when his water heater broke, and he was a funeral parlor. And I'm like, well, hold on. How do I know, like you installed it originally, when I bought the premise you had it installed, along with your cool room and the way you treat your bodies. How do I know what type of water heating, what kind of system you need, right? Then my property manager went and checked the lease and said, well, actually in the lease, it actually specifies that you need to actually replace your own hot water system. Like the tenant wasn't happy, but in commercial property, it's not about always keeping your tenant happy. It's about what goes and what's not, right? If the aircon breaks in the whole premise in my funeral parlor, then of course I'm going to fix it. But if the cool room breaks in my funeral parlor, then it's actually up to the tenant. Just like the hot water system is part of what he uses every day. So it's actually all part of him to fix, right? So he eventually got that fixed. Now, if it was a residential property manager managing my commercial property, what he would do is he would have gone and absolutely just went, yes, no, we'll fix it, and then it's the vendor's problem, right? But a real commercial property manager will look at it and go, hey, how can I save my vendor some costs? How do I maximize the rent coming in? And at rent review, right? How do I utilize these things? So I've got another group of properties that I know that one of the properties needs and this was again in regional Queensland, needs the air conditioning change. Now the tenant's been asking for that. Now we're about to come to lease review within the next 6 months. Now my property manager has gone to them and says, yes, we're happy to change the aircon, but we want you to sign a longer lease at this amount of price, slightly higher than what you're paying now, and we'll replace the air conditioning. It's all part of that negotiation. And your property manager, if it's a true property manager, needs to be thinking about how do I increase that rent? What do I give to the tenant? What do I take? It's all part of that negotiation. So I end up with a better lease, better rent, more cash flow in my pocket. Yes, I've given him some capital works money and I replaced some stuff. But remember, by replacing that stuff, remember an aircon is 10 or 15 years. Remember replacing a roof is 10 or 15 years, right? So it's not like if this tenant does leave, the next tenant also gets the benefit. It actually adds to your property, right? And there's certain things that adds immediate cash flow and certain things that will add long-term benefits. A roof is not going to add immediate cash flow because your tenant expects a roof that doesn't leak, right? But ultimately, if you have leaking roofs everywhere, you're not going to be able to tenant the property. So ultimately, it means that to keep it tenanted, you're going to have a secure roof, right? Whereas aircon impacts your tenant immediately. Sometimes your tenant just needs an extra aircon in a certain room, certain area. For example, we had a dog grooming tenant who throws a lot of heat when they dry the dogs, have a lot of issues with hair and stuff. So we had to put specialist systems in there, and that costs a lot of money. And that's a really good time to say, well, if we fix all these issues for you, we want a lease for this length, XYZ price point, right? And that's what we want to do, right? So when you have a property manager in commercial property, choosing the right property manager is actually choosing someone who can help you asset manage, help you grow your wealth, right? And the family offices there and the high net worth individuals have specialists who do these, where they are looking at how to constantly increase the value of your property in terms of growth and in terms of cash flow. Because remember, if you add an extra $1,000 or $2,000 at your rent, so for example, your tenant's paying $20,000, they're now paying $22,000. Yes, you put in an aircon that might cost you $5,000, right? But the extra $2,000 at a return, and when a value goes in, actually adds a percentage at the back end, and that can add as much as 10% on the back end of your property, which means that if your property is worth $400K, it could be worth $440K, which means it's an extra when you look at refinancing, getting that money out. It could mean an extra $20,000, $30,000 coming out. When you buy again, it adds to the value that you can buy in the future. So it's a compounding, flowing on effect, and that as a commercial property investor, you need to understand to get an effective property manager, not from the residential space, but from a pure commercial space, and help you asset manage, grow your cash flow, grow your wealth, so that you can refinance faster, buy your next property faster. That is the key of choosing great asset managers. One more example before I sign off is that recently we had a client who used a different property manager, didn't really, they just used the sales agent's property management. A lot of people do, and that's one of the big mistakes that people can make, because they don't vet out their property managers and they leave it too long. So they might use the manager. Sometimes it's actually a good idea to use your current sales agent's property management if you're trying to get a few things done. So for example, you're trying to finalize a lease, you're trying to get a new lease, you're trying to extend a lease right now, it's easier to use that property manager. But once that's done, after 3 months, you might find them not effective, right? So you need to switch your property management, right? And that's a decision that you can come to consult with us, or people that you know can help you around that. Now, recently they've been hit with a $25,000 bill to do repairs on the property because the tenant complained about it, right? Now, we all know that in residential, when the tenant complains about it, that's great. You send out someone and they fix it, right? And you pay the bill as a landlord. In commercial, we divvy it up. Now, basically, they just got sent the bill. They came to us because they're a long-term client, and we help our clients with so much aftermarket help and hand-holding that traditionally that none of the other buyer's agents do. So what happens from there is that we went and dissected it. We looked at the bill, we looked at the things that need to be fixed, some of it to do with the roller door, some of it for maintenance, some of it for the roofs. All of these issues apparently happened after 6 months of him buying the property. Now, that doesn't make sense, because during the due diligence stage, we help them work through that. The premise is pretty much brand new. So I'm like suspecting the tenant wants that money to use for something else. So we sent in someone local that we know, and we did this absolutely free for our clients, because this is how we help our clients move forward, because we understand how much after service guidance you need, right? And that's another point. If that's what you're looking for, someone to really professionally handhold you through the process and be there after the sale, then you really need to have a strategy session with us, and you really need to join a community of like-minded people so that you know you've got that hand-holding and that security afterwards. Now, so what we did was we worked out that there's certain things that needed maintenance, some things that needed minor repairs and replacement, and we were able to boil that bill down to about $5,000. So $25,000 to $5,000. What is theirs? What is the tenant's? We came back to them with effective advice, and we also gave them advice of a property manager locally that we would use. As a result, they changed the property manager, saved themselves $20,000. Otherwise, they're going to shell out $25,000, and I think this comes from the ignorance of not having an effective property manager to a property manager who and us to support him to understand what is what and who pays for what, right? The tenant was still happy, and the tenant still got what they wanted ultimately, right? It's ultimately negotiation and coming to a resolution. So if you're in that same situation and you're confused about you know, what is it that the tenant pays for? I've got a commercial property. I'm not getting the effective property management. Can you give me some advice? Reach out to us, book in for that free strategy session. Let us guide you through the minefield that's commercial property and handhold you and really support you, not just now, but afterwards and all the way through to you buy your next purchase and beyond, right? Because getting an effective property manager is choosing someone who can look at your property, helping increase the value of your property, and so that you can buy sooner. Someone that you build a long-term relationship with, so your property and asset manager, so that they can also manage across the board, not only just your property in Sydney or in Melbourne, but they can do it in Queensland, regional Queensland, so that you can continuously to grow, right? And that's really key to the wealth building in that you need to grow your cash flow as well as growth, right? So again, if this is what you're looking for, please give me a thumbs up, share this around, like, subscribe. Really, the main thing is I want to help you in your journey in the commercial property space, help you grow cash flow and wealth, and choosing an asset manager versus just a normal property manager is so key to getting more returns out of your property after you've bought it. I've always said that good to great is really important. So having a good property, which is what you use, someone like our firm, Unicorn Commercial Property, to help you find a property, but then using an asset and a good commercial property manager to make it great means that you can refinance and buy sooner. And when you do sell, you sell at a much higher price. So keep hunting, keep looking, and do reach out to us with that free strategy session. And I'll see you in the next video.